do my best with this microphone. I'm not used to holding something in my hand while I talk. Thank you so much for inviting me to share in communion this morning. I'm always so humbled by the company kept in this time of sharing. My topic today is a bit uncouth and certainly unpopular for a 21st century American mini sermon, but it's probably one of the more important topics for the follower of Christ while we buffet the body this side of the kingdom of heaven. My topic this morning is death. Now let me say briefly that there's a lot more that needs to be said on this topic, and that we do need to be extremely careful in how we handle the issue of Jesus' death. Much like the early church in trying to figure out the divinity and humanity of Jesus, there's probably more ways to get it wrong than there are to get it right. Let me read to you from 1 Corinthians 11:26. Paul states to the believers in Corinth, "For as often as you all should eat this bread and you should drink this cup, you kataangelete, you announce or you herald the Lord's death until he comes." One of the wonderful treasures of repeatedly studying the Bible or studying the Bible in original languages or the history, the times, the customs, or the geography of Israel is that you begin to consider what the writer didn't say. In this case, notice Paul doesn't say you herald the Lord's resurrection until he comes. No, he says you herald the Lord's death until he comes. One of the evangelical Christian trends today is for kids to wear catchy theological slogans on their shirts and sweaters. Can you imagine what that one would look like? I don't think that profound theological truth will make it to market. Now, why would Paul say that? I'm going to come back to this question at the end, but let me put a thought before you that might shed some light concerning why he believes that this time of communion is a time of heralding Jesus' death. The first thought that I have is that Paul believed that the status of the follower of Christ is one who is already dead. Now, just like examining Jesus' death, we have to be careful with these verses I'm about to read because there's a broad context of the story of redemption that needs to be considered. And while there are many verses Paul speaks of, looks at, we're going to take a look at just a few of them. Colossians 3:2-3. "Set your mind on the things above, not on the things that are on the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God." What a wonderful paradoxical argument that overflows with wisdom and truth. How about another paradoxical argument? 2 Corinthians 5:14-15. "For the love of Christ controls us, having concluded this, that one died for all, therefore all died. And he died for all, that they who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died and rose again on their behalf." Consider the polemical argument of Romans 6:1-6. "What shall we say then? Are we to continue in sin that grace may increase? May it never be. How shall we who died to sin still live in it? Or do you not know that all of us who have been baptized into Messiah Jesus have been baptized into his death? Therefore we have been buried with him through baptism into death, in order that Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, so we might too walk in newness of life. For we have become united with him in likeness of his death. Certainly we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection." Did you notice the change in the tense from the present tense to becoming united with him in the likeness of his death to the future tense of becoming united with him in the likeness of his resurrection? Now, one of my favorite verses in the Bible, I'm going to translate a little bit differently because I think the NASB got this one translated wrong. They translated the preposition incorrectly. Galatians 2:20, "I have been crucified with Messiah, and it is no longer I who live." Well, if I'm not living, that means I'm dead. "But Christ lives in me. In the life which I now live, I live in the flesh by the faith of the Son of God." Not in the Son of God. It's the genitive objective case, not the dative case. "Who loved me and gave himself up for me." Firstly, for those of you who are grammar nerds like myself, you'll notice that the faith that Paul has is the same faith the Son of God has. In other words, Paul is saying that whatever it is that Jesus believed about knowledge, reality, the kingdom of heaven, Paul is going to do whatever it takes as he lives in the flesh to have those same beliefs. Secondly, let us not gloss over Paul's remark that Jesus giving up himself was out of love. Brothers and sisters in Messiah Jesus, as we approach Jesus in communion this morning, let us remember that Jesus did not covet his life. It wasn't something he held on to, but rather he humbled himself and gave it up for us. Therefore, as followers of Jesus who have become united with him in the likeness of his death, as Paul says, let us heed the teachings of Jesus from Luke chapter 9, verses 23 through 25. If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits himself? Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of this man when he comes in the glory of the Father and his holy angels. So I return to the question, why would Paul say that in communion we are to herald the Lord's death until he comes in the glory of the Father and the holy angels? I think it's because Paul believed that the redemption of human beings was going to come in the form of a new creation, where we are to share in the priestly human work within the present world. Let me take a look at 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if any man is in Messiah, he is a new creature. The old archaic ways passed away. They are dead. Behold, newness or freshness has been created. However, that new or fresh creature, as N.T. Wright says, would be obtained by means of the death of Jesus, through which the powers of sin and death itself were defeated. The death of Jesus accomplished the victory over sin and death by taking the accuser's sharpest arrow and dying under its force, robbing the accuser of any further real power, such that the universe would never be the same, all because he loved you. And that, brothers and sisters, is why we herald the victory of God in Jesus' death until he comes. For those of us who share in the sufferings in his likeness, those who walk in the kingdom of God, dead to the things of this world, death has indeed, as Paul said, lost its sting. If I could have the servers come forward, please. By a friend, Jesus said, "Take, eat. This is my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, after the Passover meal, he took the cup of redemption, saying, "This cup is the new covenant of my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me."